Hi, I'm Coach Lady Mia, executive producer for Glow 365 TV and radio shows. Thank you all for tuning in right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio. You can also watch us on YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows. Now, are you aware that you can use dis-ease as medicine? Well, today I'm bringing you a brand new show called The Dis-Ease is the Cure, hosted by Leonard Berg. He's a soul therapist, a psycho-spiritual coach, and consultant, and the author of Dis-Ease is the Cure, along with being Dean of Faculty for Quaileyworks Network, which is a self-empowerment platform. On today's show of This Ease is the Cure, soul therapist Lynn Berg examines the alternative complementary approach to using this ease as medicine. How? By discovering its root cause in consciousness, thereby accelerating preventional treatment and recovery of disease. And now, let's meet your host. Lenny, thank you so much for being a new addition to Glow 365, for the Dis-Ease is a Cure show. One of the reasons I wanted to bring you on the show is the platform, is because it's so important to know thyself. When I was first introduced to you by Kujiteli Kweli, we know him as Kuj, you had mentioned that you were a soul therapist. And understanding what is soul therapy, it kind of went over my head. And, when you actually explained it, and then when I went through your therapy session, I learned so much about self, and especially when it relates to this hidden mask that I carried around many years ago during when I was diagnosed with cancer, hiding who I was and my feelings, and didn't want to express them to anyone because I felt that was a sign of weakness or being ashamed. And then also looking in the mirror, I didn't like the person that I saw because it wasn't me, because of, some of these scars that I dealt with. I had to face that demon and move forward and accepting this person that I saw in the mirror. And then the sitting in silence, from dealing with mental challenges. It helped me so much to get through that I learned coping mechanism, talking with friends, taking walks outside, to listening music and watching uplifting movies, and even seeking therapy. And I just want to thank you so much for um, sharing that soul therapy with me, to again um, understanding self and who I am today.
Well, thank you. And I'm not surprised that you are I think, 21-year survivor of cancer
Actually, 22.
because 22 years, okay. You, it has to do with spirit. But you mentioned spirit in the beginning. Some people think it's some hocus pocus spirituality or whatever. No, 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 no. It's simple the idea that uh, the spirit is the animating part of your being. It's as simple as that. It's the part of your being that gives you life, that heals you, that's connected to your creator. That's all. And the hidden mask you talked about is the ego, mind, body, and the projections we have that make us think that we are the body, we are the mind, we're our bank book, we're our riches, we're our poverty, uh, we're the diseases or the disease that we suffer. No, your ego, mind, body uh, is your costume that your spirit wears. And so you have to look in the mirror. You talked about looking in the mirror. In soul therapy, that's what it's all about, looking into the mirror of your mind, your behavior, your patterns, your beliefs, and seeing the demons that keep you from healing and wellness. Uh, and then sitting in silence enables you to begin to see that the chatter of the mind that you can't seem to control is actually reflecting back to you the conditions of your life. So it's one of the prime ways of healing. We're going to get into all that and more in tonight's show. We're going to flip the script, meaning we're going to talk about, instead of suppressing and denying and not wanting to see the upset and the suffering that we're experiencing, the dis-ease that we're experiencing, we're going to look it right in the face and we're going to turn it into medicine. But before we get into the specifics of tonight's program, we're going to talk about why it's so important and necessary to experience disease is the cure. So keep it locked right here on crrfm.com, and we'll be right back. Dis-ease is the cure if the symptoms are consciously managed, as in soul therapy, which uses dis-ease as medicine. It exposes the root causes of the conditions, whether they be physical, in relationships, or in society. Soul therapy is complementary to all other modalities of healing or remediation because it accelerates cure, reduces suffering, and attracts the wisdom and energy to help prevent, treat, or recover from dis-ease. Okay, we're back. Thank you, Coach Mia, for launching the Dis-ease is the Cure show right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network. As we've said, it's all about using dis-ease as medicine. Now, the first thing I want you to understand is that dis-ease is any disequilibrium, any chronic occurring upset with suffering in the physical body, in our relationships, in our society as a whole, in the global scene as a whole. And what we want to do is we want to see what is at the root of it. Now, maybe one quick example will help you understand what I'm talking about. The simplest example of the curative power of dis-ease symptoms is the hangover of the alcoholic and the withdrawal from various addictive behaviors. What happens to someone who's an alcoholic on the day after, the morning after? He or she has a hangover. But what does he or she do? To stop the discomfort of the hangover, take another drink. Not everybody does that, but the alcoholic, believe me, takes another drink. The addict will take another hit. Or if we're addicted to any kind of sensory apparatus, even music, even eating food, even certain kinds of activities, we're going to go right back to it, even though it's part of what is causing dis-ease. And in the process of it causing dis-ease, what's happening is we are suppressing awareness of consciousness. And we're going to go into that a little bit further. The truth is, sometimes it takes pain to make us pay attention, to make us conscious. Sometimes we have maybe one foot on a banana peel and the other foot in the grave before we pay attention to the pain. This happens a lot with athletes. They have a pain in the knee. They shoot them up with some drug and send them back out on the field. And before you know it, they have their career is over because they didn't listen to the pain and address the root causes of the pain. And by the way, you're going to learn that psychosomatic medicine is a big part of soul therapy because we know that when there are pains in the knee, a lot of it may have to do with, among other things, stubborn pride and ego. And when we have stubborn pride and ego, sometimes things have to happen to bring us to our knees, to humble us. So there are lots of correspondences I can go into, but I found that what got me into soul therapy was my own dis-ease. You know, back when I was a young man, like many of us, doing a lot of drinking and drugging and fornicating and living the material sensual life, I was sick. And I went to one of those $100 examinations to find out what was wrong. My face looked like the craters of the moon, like an alligator. I had respiratory problems. Um, I was in a failed relationship. I felt very depressed. So I quit my job and I went to get this $100 exam and, cardiograms, urine analysis, blood tests, the whole 9 yards. When the exam was over, I asked the doctor, well, what's the verdict, doctor? The doctor said, you're in perfect health. I said, what? I can't accept that. The way I'm feeling, you tell me I'm in perfect health. So that led me to begin to do research on my first approach was to find out, well, who am I? Why am I here? What is life all about? And why am I experiencing all of these conditions? It led me to a famous school called UCLA, not the college in California, but the university at the corner of Lenox Avenue on 125th Street in the village of Harlem. There was a spiritual bookstore that Earth, Wind, and Fire used to come to. I think even Kool and the Gang may have come to it. And all your spiritual people in Harlem and in New York City all went through the Tree of Life bookstore with my good friend, Dr. Kanya Kekumba. He's no longer with us. And I met many people in that store, and I had a spiritual explosion. I won't go into more details except to say that later on, I discovered that, I think that I want to be a counselor. I want to be a therapist of some kind. So I took some courses in psychology. And one of the first things your psychology teacher tells you is that the word psyche means the mind, and psychology is the study of the mind and human behavior. And that didn't feel right. I didn't resonate with that because I had already seen in the dictionary of etymology that the root psyche, the core meaning is the animating part of your being. And your mind doesn't animate you. Your physical body is a result of the animation that comes from the spirit. So I said, well, I'm going to become a therapist, but not a psychotherapist. I'm going to become a soul therapist and study deeper into the science of the soul, which is an integral part of soul therapy. Now, of course, like many of us, I grew up as a Christian Baptist at one time, got baptized in a Pentecostal church. And later on in life, I began to study religions of all kinds. I, for a while, was and still am president of a Center for the World Religions, because our purpose is to see what do all these religions have in common. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. If we're unsatisfied with religion, that's fine. But what about spirit? What about your essence? And so soul therapy, one of its purposes is to help a person to be more conscious and to know thyself and come to understand your purpose for being on the planet, because that is one of the keys to healing. On the walls of the great monuments in ancient Kemet in Egypt, it said, man, know thyself. And it was not just referring to your costume, your physical body, it was referring to your essence, your spirit. And you'll find that when you take that approach, soul therapy is a modality that may be very useful to you. So now let's take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to talk about how suppressing the symptoms of dis-ease and stress, maybe through drugs, about Big Pharma. When you look on television today, I would say that well over 50% of the commercials are from Big Pharma. They're drugs. They tell you one way in which they may alleviate your symptoms and 10 ways which it might even kill you. So, well, I believe in emergency medicine. We need drugs sometimes, but I don't believe them as long-term cure. Hippocrates, the very so-called father of Western medicine, said, let food be that best medicine. So drugs and surgery are a last resort, not a first resort. So I'm not in a war with the doctors in the medical profession, but my question is, apart from emergency medicine when we need it, what can we do on a day-to-day basis to strengthen our immune system, to become more conscious, to prevent dis-ease? And I think that soul therapy is a great help to that. As a matter of fact, I find that it could be the best friend of the medical profession, because you and I know that half the time when you go to the doctor, even the doctor who he's turned off because you're saying take the pain away, take the pain away. Then he gives you a regimen, as limited as it may be. It's still a regimen. You don't do it, so you're right back in his office. So if you can begin to get at the root of the dis-ease in consciousness, then you're going to be more likely not only to follow regimens that you're given by various practitioners, but you're going to be more likely to have the will and the energy to help the body heal itself. If you've just joined our discussion, we're talking about how to turn upset and suffering into medicine. Dis-ease, as I've defined it, is when there's chronic or recurring conditions that we suffer from, and that we experience a lot of upset from. And this chronic and recurring situation is trying to bring some consciousness to us. And once we begin to grasp the consciousness that it's bringing to us, then this aids the organism, in this case, the body, but even in a social sense, of healing itself. The mirror of your mind. There is a relationship between what's going on inside of you and outside of you, that which eludes you when you suppress the symptoms. So what we do in soul therapy is to take what's going on inside of you and put it into your inner life and see what it means. This has a lot to do with what they call psychosomatic medicine or psychoneuroimmunology. Here, I want to give a shout out to an organization called the International Society of Analytical Trilogy, because a lot of the methodology that I use in soul therapy, I've integrated a lot of the themes and techniques that they teach in analytical trilogy. It's something that was created by a great teacher and social scientist, Dr. Norberto Keppe, and his partner, Dr. Claudia Pacheco. They're in Brazil, and I learned a lot from them. Psychosomatics and psychoneuroimmunology. This says that what's going on in our mind and emotions impacts the physical body. And there actually are studies that prove this, but there's some simple ways to prove it. There's a beautiful book called The Secret Life of Plants. In this book, it talks about how the energies of the owner of the plants, or within the environment of the plants, affects the extent to which the plants can grow. Now, isn't that interesting? Maybe 33% of our body is made up of quote unquote plant material. But it also, we've learned there's certain experiments that have been done with water, wherein when there are negative energies around water, the crystal shape of the water is distorted and ugly and jagged. When it's replaced with positive vibrations, the crystalline structure of the water becomes smooth and even and beautiful. 67% of our body is consistent of water. 67% of the earth is consistent of water. So what's the story? The story is that what's going on inside of us in terms of our mind and our emotions affects not only our physical bodies, but collectively the body of the earth as an organism, the body of different organizations that we're in. And when we look around us, we see earthquakes, tsunamis, forest fires, mudslides, hurricanes. We see social unrest. We see the social institutions oppressing people and so forth. Now, one thing we should know in terms of psychosomatics and psychoneuroimmunology is that some emotions that we feel are appropriate. If you were walking in the woods and you saw a bear, well, it would be very appropriate for you to be afraid and then energy and blood would come to your extremities and to your mind. It would become clearer, and you would be able to escape. But what if every time you walk by a forest, uh, you began to emote as if the bear might jump out at you? What if you dreamt about it at night? What if you started to organize your life around those fears? Then that would mean that the hormones that help you in the immediate sense now begin to damage your immunity on a drip by drip basis. That's why it's so important for us to get at the underlying patterns of behavior and emotions and thoughts and beliefs that are driving the dis-ease conditions that we are suffering from. We're going to get a little bit more into that, but now let's take another quick break. And when we return, we're going to talk about why good things happen to bad acting people and bad things happen to good acting people. A lot of times we just can't understand, why am I suffering from this? Why is this happening to me? You know? And when we come back, we're going to get more into that. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's your girl, Coach Lady Mia, host of The Mia Almond Show, presented by Official Woman of Culture 365 and executive producer of Glow 365 TV and radio shows. As a certified master life coach and certified in other areas of mental health counselor and practitioner, self-care and boundary settings, health and nutrition, and as a wellness advocate, I share honest conversations with individuals on various topics that affect men, women, mentally, physically, and spiritually, to celebrating our cultural heritage. So join me every first and fourth Thursday right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio, online at crrfm.com, and also on YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Glow 365 TV show. So tell a friend to tell their friends and join in on the conversation to find your power of glow that equals our greater level of wellness within the mind, body, and soul.
Okay, welcome back to the Dis-Ease is the Cure show right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network. If you've just joined us, our discussion is on how to turn upset and suffering into medicine. We left off talking about why good things happen to bad acting people and bad things happen to good acting people. You know, it's funny, when I think about that, I think of the prisoner. He's in jail, and the fellow prison mates said, well, what did you do? Why'd you in here? And the prisoner would say, I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing. Yeah, well, we know sometimes that may be true, but a lot of times he or she did do something. This leads me to talk about the book and the DVD series called The Secret. It played a great role in helping people to understand the law of attraction, meaning we tend to attract to us things that we dwell upon within our mind. And the only problem I had was that there's a little bit more to it, because I would ask myself, why and how? If a little 5-year-old girl gets raped, what did she think to get raped? Mozart comes into the world writing symphonies at the age of 3. And his teacher, Salieri, who was a master himself, couldn't touch him. Why? It must be something deeper than that. But what I learned, without going too much further into that, is that before we can really get the answers to those profound philosophical questions, we have to accept what is. We have to accept the hand that we're dealt. That's part of the process of soul therapy, is to accept in the sense of, okay, face it, look at it. You don't have to like it. You wouldn't wish for it, but you got to first accept it. Now, you hear many people talking about sowing and reaping. As you sow, so shall you reap. Most people believe that, what goes around comes around. Every cause has an effect, and every effect has a cause, so forth. As you sow, so you reap. But then I began to think, well, isn't the reverse true? If you're reaping it, you sowed it. Then you ask, well, what did I do in this lifetime to sow a seed that's reaping the fruits of Down syndrome for somebody, or a weak body, or poverty? And I see these people acting like demons, rich, filthy rich. How is it that they're reaping at, and I'm a good person, and I'm reaping poverty and ill health? Well, again, uh, it's a deep philosophical question. Many ancient sages talk about reincarnation and the fact that this isn't your first rodeo. Others will talk about the sins of the father are visited upon the son. Uh, Sometimes you're told by your clergy, well, you got to meditate on it. Well, from the soul therapy point of view, we're not going to get into those deep philosophical questions necessarily. First, we're going to look at what's going on, and we're going to accept it, in the sense that we're going to look at it and see what it is. Now, that leads me to three underpinnings of these philosophies that surround this idea of sowing and reaping. It's the nature versus nurture debate in the world of psychology. Are things caused by some preordained reason, or can we manipulate and control our destiny and environment by what we do? Well, we know from the nature point of view, yes, we're born in a certain area, we're born of certain parents, we're born in a certain economic atmosphere, we're born with a body that has certain strengths and weaknesses. The second thing is environment. We're born in an environment, some environments of which are healthy and nurturing, some of which are toxic. To some extent, we can manipulate or help to cleanse our environment. And that leads to the third area, where our lifestyle, diet, things that we can do to get the most out of the hand that we're dealt, so to speak. And so in soul therapy, we try to get people to first accept and look at the hand that you're dealt, the dis-ease that's occurring. We're going to look at it very deeply. We're not going to, now in soul therapy, we're not going to try to bring it up so that you'll suffer all over again. No, what you talk about as the dis-ease symptoms, we'll listen to. One of the things I learned before I developed fully the methodology of soul therapy was the science of homeopathy. I discovered that the homeopath, the good one, classical homeopath, will interview a person and will engage them in a question and answer, looking at all of the dimensions of their dis-ease conditions. The physical dimension of it, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, all of that. And they would discover that the person would actually start healing before they even prescribed a particular homeopathic remedy for the person. And when the person would come back to see them again, they would start feeling better when they walked through the door to the homeopath's office. Well, that's part of the foundation of soul therapy, wherein when you bring consciousness and awareness to what's actually going on, it's the first stage of healing. And I'm going to go a little bit more into that when we get back. But first, let's take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to talk about why mama and papa and the white man or whatever is oppressing you is not necessarily the root cause of the dis-ease you suffer. Yes, it may be delivering the blow, but maybe the root cause is a little deeper. Let's put it this way. What's going on inside you, at the very least, may be correlated to the dis-ease condition, or let's say it may be aiding and abetting it. And again, and those of you who just joined our discussion, we're talking about turning upset and suffering or dis-ease into medicine. And why are we discussing what the root cause of dis-ease is? And why are we not just simply victims? Well, in the process of soul therapy, we expose the underlying behavior patterns, emotional patterns, mental and belief patterns, which aid and abet and which are at the root of the dis-ease you suffer. And a lot of times people experience in psychotherapy that the mama and papa, oh, they're the cause of everything. But in soul therapy, we have a different view. The view we have is that by virtue of your genetic pattern, your, the hand that you're dealt, so to speak, you attract the mother and the father that you attract. You attract some of the conditions in life that you experience, some of the events and people in life that you experience. And you attract them in order to expose that aspect of the template that is you, that is not in tune with wellness, but which is more in tune with dis-ease. And in that regard, what we find as a soul therapist, that you find that you have certain behavior patterns which are at the root, in part, of the dis-ease conditions. You may think that the dis-ease causes you to behave a certain way, causes you to feel certain things, causes you to think in a certain way, causes you to have certain beliefs. We say, well, maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the dis-ease conditions that you're experiencing expose latent patterns of behavior, emotional patterns, mental patterns, thought patterns, and beliefs that aid and abet, and maybe even have a correlating relationship to the dis-ease symptoms that you're experiencing. And lo and behold, when you become conscious and aware of what these patterns are, the light bulb goes off. And something spontaneous begins to happen within you, which we'll get into later, that leads to accelerating cure or remediation or recovery, which reduces suffering and which reduces upset. So, okay, this is where we get to what we call truth. In soul therapy, truth is the currency of soul therapy. Should I say truthfulness? There are various scriptures which I think in the Bible it says, know the truth and the truth shall set you free. I believe it was Shakespeare who said, to thine own self be true. And I can tell you, I've experienced in soul therapy that when people begin to stop suppressing and denying and distorting and overlooking the truth of what's going on inside of them, it frees up soul energy, healing energy that begins as the organism's attempt to heal itself. Herbs don't heal you. Medicines don't heal you. They can be vehicles to help the healing take place, but you got to go a little bit deeper to look at the source of healing. And this kind of suppression that we go through, I learned a lot about the suppression with my brothers and sisters in Brazil in the International Society of Analytical Trilogy. They call it inconscientization, meaning suppressing awareness, suppressing consciousness. And because consciousness is connected to your essence, and truth and consciousness are synonymous with love and creation, then when you deny the truth or suppress the truth, you're denying your creator or the life force within you. And in soul therapy, we say that is actually the root cause of all dis-ease. We're going to talk about why truthfulness is the most potent medicine in your toolbox. Remember, I said truthfulness because absolute truth, people argue about it, but there's no argue about whether you're being truthful and honest or not. Truth, which sometimes can be tricky because, you've heard people talk about my truth, my God, my truth. Then others say, well, wait a minute. How can there be more than one truth? Truth is truth. There's absolute truth. But what we say in soul therapy is that if you are committed to being truthful and honest and to look and see what's really going on, then absolute truth can reveal itself to you. And since absolute truth is related to your creator and to spirit, which is the source of healing, that's why truthfulness can free you of the dis-ease symptoms of life. Inconscientization is suppressing, denying, or overlooking the truth of what's going on. In soul therapy, we use what's called the consciousness formula. It's a very simple formula, meaning, okay, there's a higher power. Now, some people don't believe God, some are agnostic, some are atheists. And the only thing I can say to such people is, look, you didn't create yourself, did you? Whatever it is that created you, that sustains the universe, the sun sets on time and rises on time. A seed becomes an oak tree. Your heart beats millions of times in your lifetime. You breathe millions of times in your lifetime. Whatever that life force is that put you on this planet, that sustains you while you're here, and that leaves you in the dust when it escapes your body, that's what we're talking about in soul therapy. Three things: that universal life force, which some call God. Many scriptures say that man is made in the image of God. Now, this doesn't mean that God is some old man sitting up on top of a hill with a long beard. No, it means that the creator is of the nature of spirit, and the spirit in you is a spark of that divinity. And the spirit in you utilizes consciousness in order to negotiate the world. Now, think about it very carefully. And you're going to understand why I say you should accept the dis-ease that's going on, not accept it in the sense of give into it, but, or it is what it is, like we say on the street, right? It is what it is. Now, let's look at it. Let's see what it is. Let's be conscious, because this consciousness is what leads to healing. How? If consciousness is your connection to the spirit and the life force within you, which is connected to the universal creator, then if you're not being conscious, what are you disconnecting from? You're cutting off the life force, the healing force. Suppose you were running for mayor of a city, and you made a vow because there was a lot of pressure from the community. By the way, that dis-ease is the upset and unrest in the community of the nasty conditions of a ghetto, the rats and roaches and the homelessness. That's a cure. That's the dis-ease is a cure. It's the organism of that town trying to bring to the attention of the powers that be the conditions. And if the powers that be pay attention to it, then maybe there'll be a resolution. So, okay, so this candidate goes walking through the community, right? But he basically, or she, holds his nose, refuses to look at the homeless, looks away, refuses to experience in awareness the totality of this environment that they're walking through. I ask you, is this person, if they're elected mayor, going to heal that situation? Going to do something to bring about healing? No. But if that person faces it and sees the truth of it, there's a chance they may be a force for healing. So the consciousness formula for soul therapy is very simple in terms of the dis-ease is the cure. When you're conscious of not only the symptoms of the dis-ease, but the soul therapist helps you to become conscious of habitually, how are you reacting and responding to the dis-ease conditions? And what's revealed is that the dis-ease conditions didn't cause you to have that behavior pattern. It's the other way around. That behavior pattern has been maybe inherent in you, and it aids and abets the dis-ease condition. And by looking and being conscious of it, you're going to be conscious of the emotions that are triggered by that dis-ease condition. Again, although it may seem like the dis-ease condition causes those emotions, you may find that it exposes the presence of those emotions and the toxic aspects of them that already exist. Soul therapy is going to expose the thought patterns. My friends in Brazil call it inversions, inverted thinking. Getting things upside down, like thinking that work is harmful to you, that love will bring you misery, things like that. Thought patterns are exposed that aid and abet that dis-ease condition. You may think that the dis-ease condition causes you to think that way. Not, I admit it's a dance back and forth, but the root cause is more likely to be in some inherent thought patterns and mindsets that tend to aid and abet that dis-ease condition. And then, of course, their beliefs. Now, I'm sure all of you know that somebody might say to you, "Oh, I love you." And they believe that they love you, but you know better because you ain't feeling no love from them. There may be belief patterns inside of them that they're not aware of, that they're suppressing and denying and distorting and overlooking, you see. And those underlying suppressed beliefs and ideas are aiding and abetting the dis-ease condition. And I find in soul therapy that when a person gets in touch with the underlying emotional patterns, thought patterns, and beliefs, a light goes off sometimes and they calm down and the burden feels lifted and the thinking gets clearer and there's a taste of the honey of peace. And that's the environment that's conducive to healing. So that when they leave that office, my hope for them is that they'll be divinely guided through intuition and divine wisdom to the modalities that they need to heal from, to following the regimens that are given to them, to what food to eat, and so forth. But right now, let's take a quick break. And when we return, speaking of food, we're going to talk about methods of using consciousness to heal by imbibing, quote unquote, foods that sustain life. There's more to food than eating pork chops or drinking carrot juice. Dis-ease is the cure if the symptoms are consciously managed, as in soul therapy, which uses dis-ease as medicine. It exposes the root causes of the conditions, whether they be physical, in relationships, or in society. Soul therapy is complementary to all other modalities of healing or remediation because it accelerates cure, reduces suffering, and attracts the wisdom and energy to help prevent, treat, or recover from dis-ease. Hello, welcome back to the Dis-ease is the Cure show, right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network. If you just joined us at the end of our show, we've been talking about turning upset and suffering into medicine, meaning how to experience the dis-ease as cure if you know what to do. Now we're talking about methods of using consciousness to heal via foods that sustain life. That's quote unquote foods. Back in the 70s, in the village of Harlem, New York, we had a program uh, at a health center, New Age Center of Harlem, uh, created by our dear sister Anjupita Virimo. She's in Uganda now in the spiritual community. And we were operating a support group for people with AIDS and cancer, because back then AIDS was big. AIDS, cancer, heart disease, MS, your life-threatening diseases. But we began to discover a commonality to the profile of those who survived and thrived the best. There were three things, three essential things. Number one, they deepened their spiritual connection, meaning they delved more into consciousness. Irrespective of whatever religious tradition they may have come from, or if they didn't come from, they deepened the spiritual connection. Number two, they began to look at the fact that the dis-ease is the cure, meaning instead of looking at dis-ease as a life or threatening or a death sentence, they began to decide to live life to the fullest, to be more conscious, to know themselves, to seek to find out their purpose for being. That's the second thing that was in the profile. The third thing was people made the decision that instead of transitioning into a more holistic and wellness lifestyle, they decided to make that a permanent way of life, not a silver bullet, not a quick fix. And one of the things that they understood, that they needed to learn more about spirituality, they needed to learn more about the essential energy that underlies all creation. In Tai Chi and Qigong, they call it Qi. In yoga, they call it prana. This is the essential energy that comes from the spirit into the body and is stored in the body as Qi, but it's also appropriated in the air, in the sun, in the water, in the food. You get Qi, that essential energy. That's why it's so important to look at food that sustains life, not just physical food for the body. And then there are energy-based modalities which are better able to harness the essential energy, like homeopathy, Chinese medicine, many other modalities. And of course, meditation is one of the prime ways in which you rise above the consciousness of the body and begin to be more conscious spiritually. Again, thank you very much for listening. Let's take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to talk about how to experience, free of charge, soul therapy. You can make an appointment at the email lberg.soultherapist@gmail.com, lberg.soultherapist@gmail.com, or you can text country code 1-347-989-4147, country code 1-347-989-4147, and give the promo code 365-GLOW-ST, 365-GLOW-ST.
Hey, it's your girl, Coach Lady Mia, host of The Mia Allman Show, presented by Official Woman of Culture 365 and executive producer of Glow 365 TV and radio shows. As a certified master life coach and certified in other areas of mental health counselor and practitioner, self-care and boundary settings, health and nutrition, and as a wellness advocate, I share honest conversations with individuals on various topics that affect men, women, mentally, physically, and spiritually, to celebrating our cultural heritage. So join me every first and fourth Thursday right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio, online at crrfm.com, and also on YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Glow 365 TV show. So tell a friend to tell their friends and join in on the conversation to find your power of glow that equals our greater level of wellness within the mind, body, and soul.
This is your girl, Adriana Clark, and you are now listening into Caribbean Rhythms Radio Network. I invite you to join me every Saturday for Saturday Praise, when we come and we give God all the glory and all the thanks. Tune in every Saturday, 10 a.m. till 12 p.m., and make sure you keep it locked to CRRFM.com, giving you a little bit of everything.
Now, before we close, we want to do a quick summary of what we've learned here in today's show about the Dis-Ease is the Cure. First and foremost, stop suppressing dis-ease. Start looking at dis-ease as the organism trying to tell you something, trying to heal itself. Okay, so try to learn and be conscious of those things which help the body heal itself. At the roots of soul therapy is the commitment to know thyself, to know that you are not your costume, your body, mind, and ego. Your body, mind, ego is the suit of clothing that is worn by your spirit. Your body is not you. You own your body. That means, of course, it's been leased to you for this lifetime. You better take care of it. So know thyself. Be truthful and honest. Be conscious. And seek energy-based foods that sustain life. So we're going to see you next week, and we want you to remember to take advantage of the Soul Therapy offer and email lberg.burg@gmail.com or text 1-347-989-4147. Dis-ease is the cure if the symptoms are consciously managed, as in soul therapy, which uses dis-ease as medicine. It exposes the root causes of the conditions, whether they be physical, in relationships, or in society. Soul therapy is complementary to all other modalities of healing or remediation because it accelerates cure, reduces suffering, and attracts the wisdom and energy to help prevent, treat, or recover from dis-ease.
Lenny, thank you so much for giving us a better understanding on how to be more conscious and knowing thyself and using this ease as medicine in our daily lives. I also want to remind you that next Thursday, September the 21st, on Glow 365 is Sisters of Faith show with your host, evangelist coach Lady Q, streaming right here on Caribbean Rhythms Radio, online at crrfm.com at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I also want to recognize that September is Sickle Cell Awareness Month, along with National Suicide Awareness Week that runs from September 10th through the 16th, and Self-Care Awareness Month as well. And that is to educate the public. As a certified mental health counselor and practitioner, and someone that is also coping with mental challenges, I want to remind you to take care of your mental health and know how to recognize and respond to the warning signs of suicide. We can help prevent suicide and no longer sit in silence. Let's educate and remove the stigma from mental health, and let's keep talking so that we can get to a place of mental wellness. You can call the National Suicide Prevention Line at 1-800-273-8255 or text TALK to 741741 and communicate with a trained crisis counselor. You can also visit online at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. They are available 24/7 across the United States. It's free and confidential. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, stay safe and well, and continue to find your power of glow that equals our greater level of wellness.
Hey, this is your girl Sophie G, your real sister from the Sophie G Show, and I am giving a shout out to KUO Magazine. They're dedicated to promoting a greater level of wellness in all of us. Yes, they bring out that glow. Caribbean Under One magazine features different cultures and personalities of both men and women from within our own communities, sharing biographies and their personal stories and challenges, even their secrets as to how they overcame the toughest obstacles they faced, with the hope of inspiring others. Caribbean Under One magazine gives back, and they acknowledge by honoring the Ribbon of Survivors 365 by bringing awareness to those who have overcome and struggled with chronic illnesses and conditions. They inspire. KUO encourages and reminds us all of the true importance of having that glow in all our lives, a greater level of wellness. This is your girl Sophie G, your real sister, who promises to always keep it real. For me not lie, I'm not try. And I say, get your subscription today. Just log on, tell your friends, tell your family to join in and become a member, to subscribe to KUOmagazine.com today.
Glow 365 TV presents Sisters of Faith, hosted by Coach Lady Q, founder of Sisters of Faith in Pink and Pearls. Lady Q is an evangelist, certified life and relationship coach with a bachelor's in pastoral care. Lady Q will be streaming on how important it is to take care of your spiritual wellness, how to release your baggage while finding God's purpose in life, and the vital skills to build stronger relationships with a solid foundation, and much, much more. Now join Lady Q every third Tuesday as we stream on YouTube at Glow 365 TV shows at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and every third Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on CRRFM.com as we talk about the mind, body, and soul. A conversation you do not want to miss, and one you will definitely want to share.